Hello, everyone. Greetings and welcome to the world of the supernatural. Once again, I am here to present another real supernatural experience. The simple meaning of this is mastering something, not just any ordinary thing, but some kind of power, a supernatural power, or even a divine power. The word sadhana simply means to master something. In ancient times, sages used to practice sadhana for long periods because they needed to connect with higher powers and acquire energies. Gradually, things evolved, and sadhana was used in rituals and spells. However, many people, relying solely on book knowledge, start practicing sadhana and then have to face heavy consequences. Regardless of the type of sadhana, the right way to practice it is under the guidance of a guru. Only in the presence of a guru can one achieve success. But today, there are so many books available that people think they don't need anyone's help and can do everything by themselves. When you use these practices for selfish purposes, you face severe consequences. And something similar happened in our story today, where two friends got so entangled in the practice of sadhana that it endangered their lives, and they barely managed to escape. The story was shared by Aditya, and it's an incident that happened to him and his friends. Before we proceed with the story, if you have any real stories, please share them with us on the given ID or WhatsApp us. Help our YouTube channel grow a bit more. So this story is about four friends, Rohan, Aaditya, Riyaz, and Prateek. These four friends went to Haridwar for their internship at a very famous company. They were staying in a 2 BHK flat near the company. Rohan and Aaditya shared one room, while Riyaz and Prateek shared the other. Rohan and Aaditya had been very close friends for the past 5 years. Riyaz and Prateek were relatively new to them, so the two best friends stayed in the same room, eating, drinking, and having fun together. Everything was going well. They would go to the office daily, complete their internship hours, and explore places around Haridwar like Rishikesh. Rohan and Aditya had similar interests. Rohan was always interested in reading religious books, and he often read about different sadhanas. On the other hand, Aditya would recite the Shiv Tandav Stotra every day. In other words, both of them were religious in nature, and their interests converged at a common point. One day, Rohan bought a book called Ravan Samhita from a bookstore. This book, supposedly written by Ravana himself, contains methods and paths described by Ravana. It has 4 parts. One part describes how to worship deities and includes various mantras. Another part describes ways to cure diseases. Another part covers astrology. And the 4th part details tantric practices, including which mantras to chant and what materials to use. After Bringuk, the two friends would sit in their room and recite the Shiv Tandav Stotra. Most of you might have heard or read the Shiv Tandav Stotra, and these two friends would recite it in a very passionate manner. Their neighbors could hear them through the walls, and they would come and ask what kind of rituals they were performing. The friends clarified that it wasn't any kind of ritual, but just the recitation of the Shiv Tandav Stotra. Rohan and Aditya would read this book every day after coming back from the office. They read one part after another, and when they reached the section on Tantra, their curiosity grew. Although they didn't intend to practice Tantra, they wanted to read about it. They thoroughly read every kind of sadhana and knowledge described in the book. While covering the story, I also found the Ravan Samhita and read the Tantra section. I found that it describes many sadhanas, including one called Vashikaran Sadhana, which allows you to control a woman, a man, an animal, your enemy, or even a whole crowd. These methods and practices are written in the book. Before you think of anything else, let me tell you that you absolutely should not follow this. You won't gain any significant knowledge by reading this book, and it doesn't provide details anyway. This is probably the same mistake they made here, which they had to pay for later. If you have thoughts, definitely watch the story so that it's clear to you that things aren't as easy as they seem to be written, and often you end in trouble. So everything was going well for him. His routine was to go to the office, come back, then roam around the Ghats of Haridwar, which gave him some spiritual energy, refreshed his mind, and then he would read his entire book of rituals and mantras. A few days later, a new intern named Kamla joined his office. As soon as Rohan saw Kamla, he was attracted to her. He wanted to talk to Kamla somehow, but Kamla never even looked at Rohan, nor did she give him any such indication. He tried many times to talk to her in the office, but their interaction never went beyond hi. When that didn't work, he went to his friend and shared his feelings with Aditya, saying, Yar, I like Kamla a bit, but when I try to talk to her, she doesn't give me any attention. So these two friends made a plan. The plan was a bit filmy, but it worked. Aditya told Rohan, don't worry, when she leaves the office tomorrow, you leave at the same time. Aditya left the office 10 minutes earlier, signaled, and Kamla used to come on a scooter. He deflated her scooter's tires slightly. When Kamla came, she started her scooter, and as planned, Rohan had already moved a little ahead. As she moved ahead, her scooter's tire became completely flat. She started looking at her scooter worriedly. Rohan walked up to her and asked, Hey Kamla, what happened? She said, I don't know how my scooter's tire got flat. Rohan offered to help. Shall I help you? She replied, Yes, there's no puncture shop nearby. Rohan said, No problem. There's a puncture shop about half a kilometer ahead. I'll drag your scooter there and we'll get it fixed. He started dragging the scooter and Kamla walked alongside him. They chatted as they walked. Thus, Aditya and Rohan's plan succeeded, and an interaction started between Kamla and Rohan. From that day onwards, they began talking. They even sat together during lunchtime and chatted. After 2 or 3 days, Rohan, being eager, suddenly asked Kamla if she was single. She laughed and said, No, I'm not single. I have a boyfriend. She gave him all the details. Hearing this, Rohan felt a strong shock. He had dreamt a lot and thought many things over the past 5 to 10 days. His heart, like a glass mirror, started breaking. Kamla told him that she had a 2-year relationship and they had been together since college. Rohan was very attracted to Kamla. It was love at first sight for him. He fell in love with her the first time he saw her. Now he went to Aditya and said, Yar, such and such thing happened. What should I do? She's all I think about. So he started figuring out a way, and even Aditya wanted to help his friend. Both of them started thinking about how to create attraction or affection in Kamla's heart towards Rohan. One night, while they were sitting in their room, an idea struck Rohan. He quickly got up, took out the book Ravan Samhita, and started flipping through the pages. He found a method which stated that with this method, one could bring any woman in the world under control. His eyes sparkled. He told his friend Aditya, I found the solution. If we do this, I can bring Kamla under my control, break up her current relationship, and always be with her. We can start a relationship. As a good friend, Aditya should have advised Rohan against it, but for some reason, he thought it was okay. He also wanted to see if what was written in the book would really work. They decided to follow the method described in the book to bring Kamla under control. In their excitement, they read the chapter thoroughly, noting every fine detail. They gathered all the necessary information from other sources. They found out they needed to perform a ritual for goddess Kamakya, which required special materials that weren't easy to find. They started searching for these materials in different shops selling herbs and medicines in Haridwar. They made a list and collected all the items one by one. After gathering all the details, they noted the last item, which was fresh funeral pyre ashes. Reading this, they were bewildered, thinking about where they would get it. They decided to collect all other materials first and figure out how to get the ashes later. They bought everything and kept it in their room. After getting everything, Rohan told Aditya, now we just need to get the ashes. Aditya got scared and suggested dropping the idea, saying, forget it. Many girls will come into your life. But Rohan was determined, saying, Yar, we've come this far. We can't back off now. Why are you scared? We just need to collect the ashes, not perform the ritual in the cemetery. Somehow he convinced Aditya. They decided to go out at around 11 p.m. They had already scouted a cemetery earlier that day. Knowing that ashes become cold the next day if a pyre is lit around 4 to 5 p.m., they reached a silent cemetery at night. They took a black bag, looked around to make sure no one was watching, quickly collected the ashes, and brought them back to their room. They hid the ashes in a container in the kitchen. They decided to perform the rituals when Prateek and Riyaz weren't around. They didn't have to wait long. 2 to 3 days later, their colleagues organized a cocktail party and invited everyone. Rohan and Aditya made an excuse and didn't go, knowing Prateek and Riyaz wouldn't return until the next morning. Once Prateek and Riyaz left, Rohan and Aditya set up the ritual as described. They created the altar, performed the rituals, and chanted the mantra 10,000 times. Rohan was very happy and confident that he could now win over Kamla. They had collected extra ashes, so after the ritual, they just needed to sprinkle a pinch over Kamla's head discreetly. They hid the remaining ashes back in the container. Rohan took some ashes in a small paper packet and set out on his mission to the office. In the office, he waited for an opportunity to discreetly sprinkle the ashes over Kamla's head. Within 7 days, he started noticing the impact. Kamla began getting closer to Rohan. Both Rohan and Aditya were happy that their plan was working and showing positive results. Just a month later, Kamla broke up with her old boyfriend. After that, Kamla and Rohan started dating. Rohan was very happy, taking Kamla out for lunch and movies. Everything was going according to their plan. I understand that for all our single friends here, a new path might be showing itself. Okay, you probably also like someone and want to invite them over. But wait, be patient. Within a few days, suddenly Prateek's health deteriorated. He was sitting and suddenly felt very weak, almost fainted. He remained in that state all day, and by evening there was no improvement in his condition. They gave him drips, but nothing helped, so they took him to the hospital. There, after a blood test, it was found that his platelet count had dropped significantly. They thought he might have dengue, since platelets drop in that condition. But when proper tests for dengue were done, the reports were normal. He didn't even have a viral infection in his body. Despite waiting for 3 or 4 days, there was no improvement, so they told him to go home as his health might worsen. He was sent home. After he went home, Riyaz was the only one who slept in that room. And from the day Prateek left, Riyaz started experiencing sleep paralysis attacks. The next morning, he told his friends that his health wasn't the issue. He said, "I felt like someone was strangling me repeatedly at night, and I felt like I wasn't alone in the room, like someone was watching me." They told him he was imagining things, but he insisted it felt real. So they all went to the office. That night, both friends decided to sleep in Riyaz's room. Around 9 or 10 p.m., Riyaz stopped going out of his room. The room didn't have an attached toilet, so he held his bladder all night and avoided drinking water to prevent needing to use the bathroom. He was so scared that he read the Hanuman Chalisa before sleeping every night. A couple of days later, these friends planned to go to Rishikesh. On their way back, they decided to take an adventurous route through a national park. It was dark by then. On the highway, they saw a small hut with a sage meditating inside. They asked him for directions to Haridwar, but the sage looked at Rohan angrily and told them to leave. Terrified, they left quietly and continued on their way. Suddenly, their bike's lights went out and the brakes stopped working on a downhill slope. The bike picked up speed uncontrollably. They started chanting the Mahmrityunjaya mantra, and miraculously, the brakes started working just in time to avoid falling into a deep ravine. Shaken, they realized they had narrowly escaped death. Upon reaching their flat, they decided to sleep in the same room again. But the next day, Riyaz received a call from his father saying that something was wrong and asked if they had disturbed any spirits. Riyaz's health had worsened since coming home, exhibiting strange behaviors. They were advised by a spiritual leader that they might have disturbed a spirit. That night, while sleeping in a hotel, Aditya got slapped hard in his sleep twice. He woke up, but saw no one. Rohan was sleeping deeply beside him. Aditya's cheek was red from the slaps, indicating it wasn't a dream. Connecting all the incidents, they realized the rituals they performed with the ashes from the cremation had caused all these disturbances. They immediately decided to go back to Haridwar to perform the necessary rituals to release the spirit. While on the way, they met with a severe accident. A car hit them, and they ended up in the hospital. The driver said he swerved to avoid a deer-like figure that appeared suddenly. They knew it was the same spirit that caused this accident. After performing the correct rituals in Haridwar and immersing the ashes in the Ganges, they apologized sincerely. From then on, everything went back to normal. Riyaz and Prateek returned and the disturbances stopped. Rohan continued his relationship and eventually got married to the girl he liked, but this secret remained between these two friends. Until today, no one knew about it before now. After that incident, neither of the friends ever read the Ravana Samhita again. They donated that book to a temple right there and took an oath never to do something like that again, no matter what happened in life. So, to accomplish their goals out of selfishness, Rohan and Aditya tampered with things they didn't know anything about. They followed a process, a method, just by reading a book. That method was fruitful for them, but at the same time, an entity got attached to them. You could call it fate or their strong religious beliefs, but they didn't suffer much harm. The entity that attached itself to them was not very dangerous or evil. Imagine what could have happened if a bad or dangerous entity had attached to them. Only you can understand the possible consequences. Not only that, but their two friends also faced a lot of trouble because of them. But all in all, they eventually recovered, and after that, they never had such an experience again. However, one thing still remains hidden. Was Kamla really attracted to Rohan because of that ritual, or was it just a coincidence that they had some internal problems going on at that time and Rohan was in contact with Kamla? When a person is broken, they need support, and Rohan was that support. Rohan and Aditya believe that Kamla came to Rohan because of the ritual they performed. Or was it that, along with Kamla, an entity whose identity they still don't know was also attracted to them because of that ritual? What do you think? Do let us know in the comments. We'll meet in the next story. Until then, keep reading and learning. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and share the video. See you next time.